Say good morning to you. We're late, and of course, it's not our fault. Well, we had to give some time, extend some courtesy, some time to our previous show since very important information was being disseminated. Hey, but nevertheless, we're here better late than never. I'm here with Miss Borjamet along with her guest. Good morning. Welcome inside another edition. All right.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm hoping today we can get some persons to call into the program. Of course, not just only send your comments, but you can call in to make it a lot more interesting. So, with me this morning, no stranger to us, we have Mrs. Sasha Japierre James, and she is going to, I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and her topic on this program today. So, we're promising to have a very great show, very informative, and of course, as I said, I'm encouraging you to call in, give us your views. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Renita. Good morning, Super FM. Good morning to Senosha. And I am Mrs. Sasha Japierre James. I function as the EAP manager. This is the Employee Assistance Program manager as well as a counseling psychologist, two of the many hats that I wear. And today we will be addressing mental health stigma in mental health. And as many of you may know, or some of you might not be aware, this month, September, is Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. And if you would have tuned in last week, you would have gotten some information on suicide prevention. But today we're addressing stigma in mental health. So once again, Renita Ulan, thank you guys for having me yet another time.
And we will continue to have you because you're an awesome guest, giving so much information. So of course,
Thank you for that.
yes, yes. So you said stigma with mental health. Well, I know you will go into it, but give us when you say the word stigma because we want to reach all our listeners out there.
All right.
Of course.
And we will definitely get into what stigma is. But as much as the topic of suicide prevention would have been addressed last week, I just want to highlight the theme for this year. And it's actually a triennial theme. What that means is that they will be having this theme for the next 3 years. And it is changing the narrative with a call to action to begin the conversation on suicide prevention. And when we speak about suicide prevention, we have to speak about mental health. And this is why I felt it was fitting for us to address stigma in mental health, because most times this is something that prevents people from seeking psychological support services. Yes, so when we speak about stigma, mental health stigma, this really refers to the negative beliefs and attitudes that people have towards people with mental illness or mental health conditions. And many times when we speak about mental health stigma, this is something that you find people, because it's so prevalent in society, people do not say that they need help because of the stigma. So, and it is disheartening because this is when they have to reach out for help. But Elan, Renita, you can well imagine if I know I speak to you about having a mental health problem and you tell me, but just be quiet. Why are you even speaking about that? That would just prevent somebody from actually beginning the conversation about it. And this is something that we have to address in our society as much as, and I always like to highlight the positive, as much as we have made some strides in destigmatizing mental health in St. Lucia, we still have some way to go. And this is why we are having this discussion today.
Definitely.
So I thank all the listeners, everybody who has tuned in. We look forward to your comments and your questions. You have a part to play in destigmatizing mental health. So we spoke about mental health stigma, looking at the negative attitudes. One of the things that I want to highlight, many times people operate in a particular way because they do not understand what is happening to individuals. And when they do not understand, and we can call it ignorance
Yes. Yeah.
because it speaks about a lack of information. You do not have adequate information, and therefore you label people. And there are many people with mental health conditions who operate and function quite well. And this is one of the myths that people need to understand. Not everybody with a mental illness or mental health challenge cannot function well. There are lots of people all over St. Lucia who are functioning most times at the optimal with the required support. Yes. So, what are some types of stigma? Let's first of all look at public stigma, and that has to do with society's negative beliefs about mental illness. So, maybe we can begin our discussion on this today, Renita. Public stigma. How society views people with mental health challenges.
Yeah. Whilst you were speaking, I was thinking, you're saying that persons don't open up to letting persons know that, of course, they have mental health challenges. I'll not say issues, I'll say challenges. Imagine maybe having a conversation. Let's say we don't know who's who in society, and somebody speaking to Ulan saying, Ulan, I have some mental health challenges and so on, only to find out that Ulan is the manager of, an enterprise, and tomorrow Ulan is saying you come in for an interview. Yeah, so it will be me. You have already told me that you have some mental health challenges. I will employ you in my business. So I think a lot of that information, more than anybody else, has to go out to the employers out there to help them understand that, of course, there is treatment for mental health. So just as persons who are suffering with a migraine or you are
That's right.
suffering with diabetes, you get your treatment. It's just the same as having mental health, where you can get the treatment for that. And persons should not be stigmatized and said, hey, you cannot get that job because you have this.
I know you might be
That's
jumping in
right.
room, but you spoke about before persons start stigmatizing. But how many persons out there are willing to accept that they have mental issues? Somebody going through with mental issues, they might just be, hey, move on, nothing happened to me, I'm fine.
Right.
It's just me on a bad day having a bad day.
Very, very true.
I like
Understand?
this, Ellen, and I'm going to make a note because I want to address Renita's
Point.
point,
Yes.
right? What you mentioned, sometimes we have to be real in our discussion of the mental illness, right? Mental health. We have to be honest and open. This is how we're going to change the narrative on suicide, on other mental health challenges. So, yes, somebody may be aware that an individual has mental health challenges, and because of that, maybe they do not want to employ them. And this is why I mentioned earlier on, sometimes people operate from a place of lack of information and ignorance, because when they begin to educate themselves about mental health challenges, they would realize that there are support services available to help the individuals to not just do well, but to thrive. So if
Definitely.
these support services are available and people know that, okay, despite the fact that I have been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, depression, or whatever the mental health challenge is, I can still be employed. And this is why, even from my unit with the Department of the Public Service, EAP, we have been conducting a number of what we call capacity building sessions where we educate public servants on how to address mental health challenges within the workplace. People spend a lot of time at work, and sometimes they present with certain behaviors that may seem, to the person who is uneducated about the mental health challenges, it may seem like, okay, this person is just acting out, but that is not what it really is. And during these sessions, we provide information so that people understand that if I present one day at work and for whatever reason I did not greet you, let's just use a
Yeah, yes,
basic
yes, yes,
example.
yeah.
I did not greet you. That is not because I'm unmannerly or
True.
impolite. It might be an indication that I am going through something. There are lots
Definitely.
of people who present with certain behaviors, and it's because of mental health challenges that they're experiencing. Right now, people go through so many things. And as a therapist, I can tell you, it's like almost everywhere you turn, somebody's fighting some challenge. And by the very words we speak, we use, that can help to change, that can help to provide support. The way we interact with people. So even from the EAP units, and I'm sure some other organizations are doing that as well, providing education, awareness. And this is why every opportunity I get, I grab it
True.
because if we can reach one person, if we can educate one
Make a
person,
difference.
if we can raise the awareness, it makes a
Make
difference.
difference. Very true.
And that is true. Okay, that is true. But I just wanted to ask quickly, what are the misconceptions associated with mental health stigma?
Very good, Ellen. It's like you're I don't want to say you jumping the gun, but that is a very, very good question, and I intended to address it. Some misconceptions is that people who have mental illnesses or mental health challenge, they cannot function. That's one. They believe they cannot work. Another one is that they're all aggressive. That's a very common one. So you see somebody or somebody has been diagnosed with a mental health challenge, you believe, okay, that person is aggressive and that person can hurt me.
Right.
That is not correct. That is not correct. There are people, as I said earlier on, who go to work, they're doing well, they're educating people, they're functioning well, but they have a mental health challenge. And what I want to highlight is that with support, therapy, support groups, they can function. It's just like Renita mentioned earlier on. I know it's a very, how would I put it? The discussion is
So really true.
yes, there's so much to
Yes.
say.
But
Yeah, and it's also something that I'm quite passionate about. Yes. Um, but you go ahead and then I will capitalize on
No,
that.
I was just saying that the point that Ellen made earlier, that was what I was thinking. The same way
Acceptance.
that persons believe that mental illness is all about our how do we call the word we have out there where we don't use, we encourage persons not to use anymore, mad and crazy.
demented.
And
What
yes, and
Those
of
like
course,
cycle.
mental health is all about to have a mental health challenge or an illness is all about persons who have gone to the wellness center or before to have gone to Golden Hope. This is how, as soon as somebody hears about mental health, this is what comes to mind. Ikafu,
Yeah,
ikaful,
the way society.
Yes.
ihali adidaluni bin. So from the time you hear that mental illness, this is what comes to mind. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that many persons suffer with mental health challenges because, like you earlier
At
said,
some point in their lives.
yes, at
What we
some
do.
point, because as you said, we talk about anxiety. Many persons suffer with anxiety.
Depression is one
Right.
of the
Okay.
biggest things.
Yes, many persons suffer with anxiety. Now, as Mrs. James said earlier, that you'd be seeing somebody acting out in the workplace and they're saying, oh, she's just acting out, nothing is wrong. And that brings to the point of how many persons really believe that they have mental health
Right.
challenges or accept it.
But as what I
Which is
highlighted
Right.
earlier.
yes, which is
So
Ellen's question.
right. So it may be even for the person themselves who's acting up, they're not even aware
Right.
that, I'm suffering with this and it's actually a health issue. They'll just be thinking, I'm having a bad day. Okay, or these days things are really bad by me. So that gives me not the reason, but it's acceptable that, things are not going okay. So I'm just acting out because of that.
With that being said, we acting out on all that because of how can one actually come and diagnose saying that, yeah, diagnosing that in the office or in the workspace, saying that this person, I feel that person kind of, need a little checkup or every, we need to,
Okay.
30 sorty. Like, you understand? You get to it, let's be real. Let's be real.
Right.
Yes.
And going back to what I mentioned in terms of the capacity building sessions, during these types of workshops, we provide the information on what are some signs to look for. So if you realize a person is presenting with a number of challenges
At work.
at work,
So
yes,
in relation to the
then this
employee, right?
might be an indication.
Right.
Now, one of the things I always like to highlight, sometimes people like to self-diagnose or diagnose people, and a very common one in St. Lucia is, oh, that person is bipolar, one time she up, one time she's low. And this is quite inaccurate. So we provide the information on, okay, a person is presenting with these signs and symptoms that might be an indication that the person requires help. You're not diagnosing, you're just recognizing that perhaps this person needs some support. Let me engage that individual. Let me, okay, Renita, I noticed that you're not looking. You could say it very simply in layman's language. I notice like you're not looking like yourself. We like to say that in our
Yes,
vernacular.
yes.
Is there anything I can do to support you? How are you doing today? How are you feeling today?
True.
Because if when you're working with people, you begin to know their personalities, their attitudes, and you realize that if they're not acting a particular way normally, then maybe there's something wrong. Maybe there's a little bad news. I remember one of our managers would have called me at work. Now, I was actually on vacation, but the individual did not know that. So I was just getting to my vehicle and trying to leave the house, leave my home, and that call came. But of course, sometimes I still take the work calls even whilst I'm not at work. And the usual cheeriness and bubbliness in my voice, people who know me know there's always a smile and a little giggle in the voice. And he did not get that. So he was like, Sasha, are you okay? Usually when I speak to you,
Yes.
I get that little. Now this provided me with the opportunity to tell, oh no, I'm so sorry, I'm absolutely fine, but it's just a case where I was rushing to
Rushing.
leave, and I just called and I was just direct. So this is an example of, okay, you did not hear that usual bubbliness, or you saw certain things about the individual, then you just check in. And I really appreciated the individual for doing that. So if we are our brother's keepers,
One
you
time
know,
education, eh? One time education.
yes.
Something that came to mind as she said, being brothers keepers, many times in the workplace you'll hear, Bailale hodia.
Yes.
Bailale hodia. So either stickler or Bailale. So
That is
Well,
a
guys,
very good one.
really and truly, we spoke about the workplace and, of course, persons having signs showing off. Um, in the workplace, persons maybe bad relation. When I say bad relation, maybe you answer somebody in the wrong manner, or some other person might feel disrespectful, and then you maybe happen to reach HR. How can eight persons from HR, how do we actually where is the awareness so they too can know, something is wrong and diagnose the same way, not like a self-diagnose like other
Right,
persons, but
right.
guys, something is out of balance, and I don't think it has to go that far or take it, let's how can we deal with it as an employer and of course HR talking,
Yes. And
yes.
again, Ulan, thank you for that. It goes back to education. Education and awareness, because when you are equipped with the information, you would understand that this is really not a case for HR, but really a case that even if it gets to HR, the individuals involved can recognize that, okay, this person is going through something, and this person needs support. So I am going to make a referral. I'm going to engage the
Nice.
individual and make a referral.
Nice.
So you speak to the person politely, you gently encourage them. Perhaps you can call the EAP unit. It's a unit that provides you with psychosocial support services. It is absolutely free. Maybe you can consider speaking to them.
Why we had to put that number out there? Do you have the number on hand? I don't.
Of
If you have it,
course,
okay.
of
There you go again.
course.
You know.
It is, you can
Yeah.
call 285-6252. You can call 468-2269. And when you call the EAP unit, you don't have to provide your name. We value your confidentiality and your privacy. So all you have to provide us your telephone number and your ID number. And the ID number, we're referring to the last seven numbers to the back of your ID. So God forbid, say there's a situation with the database, you only see numbers. You cannot put a name to that. And again, I want to reiterate, because that information is out in the public domain, it is absolutely confidential and the services are free. And there are other support services. You can call the community mental health services. You can get psychosocial support services. Since we're on that topic, the national helpline is 203. If you or anybody you know is experiencing suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts, and you are not equipped, sometimes you are not equipped, you do not know what to say to them, call 203. One life can be
That's true.
saved. Yes.
While we're talking about numbers, again, guys, if you all you with radio and cyberspace, if you want to make a contribution, remember you can call us at 459-7885 or WhatsApp, send a voice note 7305388. We're here to let's get interactive. Yeah.
Yes. And Erland, permits me, both of you spoke about acceptance of mental health challenges. Earlier on, you spoke about that, and I did not get a chance to answer. But acceptance of mental health challenges speaks to self-stigma. So this is where an individual recognizes that something is amiss. I am feeling sad. I've been feeling sad for an extended period of time. I feel no motivation. So many things are happening to me. They recognize the difference. However, because of the way they internalize these thoughts, they do not seek psychosocial support services. Sometimes it might be linked to shame and guilt. And again, we can point to the stigma.
But why
We're
guilt?
speaking guilt because sometimes they believe, okay, it's my fault. Maybe I should have taken care of myself better. Maybe I should have done this. What if I had done this differently? There are times people experience guilt, people experience shame, and because of that, they suffer in silence. They do not reach out, and in extreme cases,
In simple
do
words, you're
something
saying
to
like killing
themselves.
themselves softly.
Yes, we could say
Dying
that,
inside.
because if you realize
Yeah.
that you're sick medically, right? The pain is not leaving you, but then you're not going to the doctor. The pain is not leaving, it's getting worse, but you're not going to the doctor. The same thing happens in mental health. You realize you're encountering certain symptoms, but you're not seeking the support. And you, as you said, you're killing yourself softly. And this is why it takes a community. So you may not realize, because of the self stigma, that you are hurting yourself, but then you help this other person. So you, Renita, you realize, okay, I'm going through this, I'm going through a transition, but then because I am being my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper, I reach out to you and I begin a conversation with you.
True. Also, thinking of parents as well, that you may see your child or children presenting certain symptoms, presenting certain behaviors, and you take it for granted to say that child is just troublesome, that child is just acting up. Like we said, in the workplace, it happens as well. Nonetheless, again, with the stigma attached to mental health, it will be that me, I'm not going to take my child to counseling. What will people think of me? How will I look out there? Especially, oh, I am a lawyer or I'm a teacher. Next thing they say the teacher's child or the lawyer's child have issues. So it is not really about, who you are and how people will look at you. But of course the help that the individual needs.
Touche,
Right.
touche.
Yes.
Right. Very good point. And I want to highlight as well that when we begin to speak openly about mental health challenges, it helps to normalize the conversation. It helps to normalize that, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. And it's absolutely okay that if I have a mental health challenge, that I seek support. We need to begin that dialogue, that
Definitely.
discussion, and change how we view it. I remember back when I was working at the rehab center, when I used to tell people, okay, I work at the rehab center, and in St. Lucia, they do not often differentiate from the rehab center and the wellness
Wellness
center.
center, true.
And can you believe, Ulan and Renita, the question, how you dealing with these mad people?
Yes, yes.
This is stigma, our reactions to that, the language that is used. But I can tell you that I took the opportunity to school these
Yes.
individuals
Very good.
because it
Very good.
provides you with that opportunity to give the information.
Information. Right.
It's all around us. So
No,
as we
you're right.
begin to
You're right.
speak, as we begin to say, you know what, I went to counseling, I went to seek help, and it helped me. And this is why, Renita, you would be aware of this as well. Most times when the EAPs have been webinars, what we have been trying to do is to have like what you call a lived experience, a testimonial from somebody who has experienced a challenge. And by hearing about it, again, it helps to normalize that. It's okay, I've been there. Look at me, I'm still functioning. And just last week, we had a webinar focusing on suicide awareness prevention, and there was this youth worker who spoke about her experiences where she attempted suicide, and now she is doing great work. She's doing great work helping youth, and it tells you that help is available. It's not as gleam and dim as we think.
But really, truly, it's a beautiful thing getting a first-hand testimony. Being there, done that, and then you're like, hey,
That's right.
you understand? The mindset is different. Listen, and hence the reason why I always say to most persons there, you have to protect your mental health.
Yes.
But there's a question, there's somebody's asking, how do historical perspective on mental illness contributes to present day stigma?
How to
How do historical perspective on mental illness contributes to present day stigma?
I believe historically, when people were going through mental illness or mental health challenges, it looked like it was looked on like something that was so bad that something was wrong with them. So I think the residual impact of that still lingers to an extent on people. So they believe, okay, even with disability, you have a child with special needs. No, that child is not going outside. That child is staying home. And the same thing happens too with mental health. Now, historically, as a person is asking, that was a bit more prevalent, but we're still seeing the lingering impact. People still think that if you have a mental illness, as you said earlier on, something is wrong with you, you cannot function. And this is why, as we begin to educate people, they will realize that even if you have been diagnosed with a mental illness or mental health challenge, you can still do well.
I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question. Since I highlighted the historical part of that, let's talk about genetically. Can someone be suffering with mental illness because of maybe passed on genetically family?
Yes. There are several factors that can make somebody more predisposed to having a mental illness or mental health challenges. Just as in a particular family, if there is a history of a medical condition, let's use diabetes, that is very common in St. Lucia, you become more predisposed. That means you become more at risk. Why are you more at risk? Because if you do not engage in what we call protective factors are things that you put in place to help to preserve your mental health. And when we speak about mental health, we're speaking about a mental state of well-being where you're able to deal with your stressors, and the stressors come all every
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
almost every time.
Different ways they come.
Yes. So, yes, if there is a history of mental illness in a particular family, an individual, if they do not engage in protective factors, seek the necessary support services, they become more predisposed, more at risk. And this is why we encourage people to engage in proper self-care management practices. If you realize that, okay, my granny was admitted for mental illness or was diagnosed with depression, that means you are more at risk. So engage in the protective factors, seek the support services, talk to somebody. When you realize that your stress levels are too high, do something about it. Engage in stress management activities, and just very briefly for people who may want to know, how do I manage my stressors? Because I understand that not everybody who's listening might be privy to the information. So very simple stress management exercises, paying attention to your rest, what you eat. The foods we eat can make or break us. We know about that. Ensure that you exercise, paying attention to your time management. This is something that impacts people's stress levels. So even simple things as always saying yes to task. I'll do it. Can you help me with this, Renita? Oh, I'll do it. And then you realize that it becomes burdensome. You do not have enough time. And then that places more pressure on the individual.
So true.
So, yes, genetically, you become more predisposed if you do not care for yourself, if you do not engage in protective factors. And just as there are protective factors, there are risk factors. And one of the risk factors, I mean, having a family or another family member who has a mental illness, if you engage in negative coping mechanisms, always drinking, and these can contribute to this.
Something
Yeah.
like Ellen mentioned, somebody was asking about the historical factors. Something I wanted to bring to light is that before, mental health was seen not as a mental health condition,
Yes.
but as you have evil spirits. Like, yes, you're
Yes. I like that
possessed,
one.
that you're possessed. And even now, sadly, that you still hear people say, it's about free before
Yes. Yes.
what have any spirits that person is possessed. And something I'd like to say to the public is that you seek professional help. I do not want to target anybody, but I know many times, especially persons who go to different churches, they will turn to their pastors and take this person to the pastor and say, Pastor, I think something is wrong. Maybe there is a spirit who has possessed this person. Pray for this person. We pray in this thing out. Okay. Recently there I was having a conversation with an individual, and he's saying to me that this lady started acting out like, and they were not aware that she had a slight stroke, as we see in our language, and she was not speaking properly. She was like actually hallucinating and all what was happening to her. Lo and behold, who do they call? A pastor to pray the spirit out because she's possessed. Only when they realized after that, they took her to the doctor. She was diagnosed that, she had something wrong with her.
Right.
So I'd like to tell persons out there, do not, like you said earlier, do not self diagnose, do not diagnose others because you are not professionals. Seek help. So when you have somebody who presents with certain behaviors, of course, reach out to the counselor, reach out to the psychologist, reach out to the what do you call them, the therapists at the hospitals. You understand? The psychiatrist reach out to these individuals. It's okay. It is fine to have your pastor pray to assist this person, but do not think or take it on you to say
Right.
this person is possessed. Because back then, this is a lot of what we used
Yes.
to hear.
And I'm happy
I
you mentioned that.
very good point. Because just
Yes.
before you highlight anything, very good request. I wanted to ask what myths about mental illness are widespread or harmful.
Right.
And I see you came
Yes.
up with that. And I was like,
Yes.
very good.
Yes, and it's usually an area that is very controversial. It can be very controversial. And again, it stems from lack of information.
Information, right.
And, you know, in the defense of certain people who are so inclined, what I would say is that sometimes because of the behaviors that the individual is presenting with, it can give an inclination that perhaps that person is that way. But again, as she rightfully pointed out, go to a professional. And there have been so many instances where things like that have happened. They believe, okay, the person is demon possessed when it's not that. And some of the behaviors you mentioned, hallucinations, the delusions, it can seem like something is really wrong. Of course something is wrong, but you just misdiagnosing because you do not have the information available. So I'm really happy that you
So like someone,
raised
I
this.
tell my symptoms person actually. Like, I want to use that. You hallucinating, you what else do they put on?
Well, you're referring to
Yes.
people who are
Yes.
with mental
Like
health
mental.
challenges or the
Well,
demon
the
possession.
similarities, like your mid mentioned, can share on the same, like, we, but mental, let's stick to mental illness.
Mental
Yes.
illness.
Tell us some of the,
Okay, so in order to answer that question, what I would need to indicate is that there are various mental illnesses and mental health challenges.
what they list mean.
So
That's what we hear.
some of them, the signs and symptoms would vary. But what I would do is to just give you an overall,
Yes.
yes. So let's talk about one of the common ones, depression. Yes, so somebody may isolate themselves. They experience lack of motivation. They do not want to do anything, even things that they usually would enjoy doing. So there's a lack of interest in certain activities. They're usually withdrawn. They find themselves crying a lot. There's lack of appetite. Um, all of these may be indications that a person is going through
Let me
depression.
ask you a question. What if somebody has stuff they value, and for some reason they just give it all, just give it to me. Like, somebody, the person used to value that stuff so much, and all of a sudden I was like, I me person, I was like, what going on?
Yes, that can be a warning sign because, as you said, all of a sudden the
All of a
person
sudden,
decides, okay, I no longer want it. And when previously this is something that
twice, yes,
was,
like good China.
yes. So, in a case like this, if you're experiencing this with somebody, engage them. Engage them. Don't just say, "Oh, you're giving me all of this. Thank you." Engage them. Now, of course, some people will some people will genuinely give you stuff, but
Yeah.
because of what we know, engage them, find out what's been happening with them. Because going to suicide prevention, one of the warning signs when people begin to give away
away the
things
possession.
because in their mind they've already started thinking about killing themselves, harming themselves. So they would no longer need this. And I'm sure last week, your guests would have gone through some of the warning signs of suicide.
Definitely.
And this is something that you need to probe a little more because as you probe, you'll recognize that, okay, there's something beneath this. And as I speak about that, an example came to mind where an individual reached out, and as much as I have permission to share this, I'm going to be very general. An individual reached out, and just through Ulan and Renita, just through speaking to them, engaging them, checking in, following up after, What if I told you that these actions helped to save somebody's life and somebody was able to be pointed to support services? So imagine, sometimes we take the very things that we do and say for granted, checking in on somebody, greeting them with a smile, finding out how they're doing. We take these things for granted. Not everybody who, when I ask somebody, how are you doing? You can bet your bottom dollar, I will not just accept, I'm okay. What's okay? So my response is usually, okay, now tell me how you're really doing. And then sometimes that affords them with the opportunity to speak about what's happening with them, because many times they just say, I'm okay. And how many of us really take time to listen to, as you're about to say, things are not, it's okay, have a good day. So that gives you, so if you had a problem, Erlan, and you get that response from myself, would you even want to speak to me? Because I've already dismissed you. Do I genuinely want to know what's wrong with you? No. So all of these little things, as we're speaking about addressing stigma in mental health, as we speak about helping people, these things go a long way. And need I say, you do not need to be a mental health practitioner to save a life, to
Exactly.
provide support. Yeah.
And I was even saying that even when, because we are always so very busy, we have another guest. So even when we are very busy, and sometimes you really genuinely do not have the time to engage, like you're running late. So what you do, most times what I would do, I mean, not everybody will tell by you being a professional, you being in that field, you will be able to pick up signs and symptoms
Right.
more than maybe Ulan right here, who maybe is not necessarily. I'm not saying that he cannot, I'm just saying.
Right. Right.
So sometimes what I would do, I will tell the person, come and have a chat with me. You need to come and have a chat with me. Or hand this person my work number, tell them where I work,
Right.
And even this program, and that is why I try my utmost to be here even more often than I used to. That once somebody met me and said to me, can you believe that I was having a really rough day? Things were really not going with me, and I was scrolling and happened to get this program and I listened. Let me tell you, you really helped me just by listening to this program. So there are very little things that we do, as you were saying, can really help a
Right.
life. And something else, sorry. And something else, when you were speaking about giving away the items and so on, what I get a lot is that, and I said that last week on our program, is that persons are quick to dismiss you.
Yes.
Like they want you to leave. Leave. Look, Ellen, take this. I really love this pen, but because you're such a great friend to me, take this pen. Anyways, I have to rush to go and bathe. So right. So don't
Just to dismiss you.
right. So don't accept that. Or I'm going to my garden, or they give you an excuse to dismiss you so they can go and do what they need to do.
You're right.
When you've realized that, engage them. Like Mr. James said here, engage this person. Don't leave. Because just by you being there, stalling this person will save their life. Because many times you'll hear, had I known, I would not have left.
Yes.
Had I known, I would
Yes.
take that key from that drunk person. Had I known, I would take that gun.
That's so
Had I
true.
known, I would take that knife. So act. Because like I said earlier, I said on my last program, sometimes, and I use the word force, but I meant that they will not willingly give you a weapon. They will not willingly do something, but you wanting to help, do whatever it
That's
takes
right.
to help this person out.
Yes. Because one of the key things with addressing the stigma with mental health is when a person knows that they're not alone. You know how awesome that feels, knowing that you have support systems. You know you're going through something and you're not alone. So when people know that, okay, help is available, I'm here with you, and show them that you're there. Don't just say it, because people, when they're in need, when they're in a low place, they will be able to decipher that, okay, you're just saying it. Because as much as you're saying it, you're not reaching out, you're not following up, you're not keeping up with your promises. So it's important for us to follow through with that. let them know by our actions that we're here.
Definitely.
And it takes everybody to support somebody. It takes all of us to reduce and address the stigma. I mean, we've barely scraped this topic, and it's something that should be on a continuous basis. We spoke about the public stigma, self stigma, and one of the other types of stigma I want to highlight is institutional stigma, where there are organizations that do not have policies and systems in place to help
I
people
was
with
just
mental
coming to
health
that.
conditions.
Yes.
So this is something that our society has to be aware of, and I can say, I mean, there are places because of the establishment of support services, people are beginning to realize that, okay, even if I have a mental health challenge, I can still go to work, I can still be gainfully employed. And that is a good reassurance, because the irony is that if they do not have a job, that means it creates another
More
stressor,
depression, right?
financial
Of
stressor,
course.
personal stressors, home stressors. So you can see the ripple effect. Everything is connected.
One thing I was thinking of was you were speaking, especially for institutions, and we touched base on that earlier, is that I'm thinking that a suggestion that workshops need to be done with employers, persons in HR employers, that workshops regarding mental health should be done with
Right.
them. So at least they can pick up and know and even make the policies around how you treat your employees who are maybe presenting with certain symptoms of mental
Correct.
challenges. So I think that's one of the
Correct.
suggestions
Yes.
we can look at.
Yes, and this is why 8 years ago the Department of the Public Service would have seen it fitting to establish the EAP unit, where public servants and their family members as well can get support. And this is a start.
And you know where I'm going with that by giving you that big smile. That what if I'm not a public servant, then what?
Yes, and I'm going to address that. So if you're not a public servant, you're not a family member of a public servant. Earlier on, I mentioned the community mental health services. You don't need to be a public servant. You can go to any wellness center in the country and get help. You can go to the wellness center if it is a case of suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts. You can call the national helpline 203. So even if you're not a public servant or a family member of a public servant, there is still something for you.
I'm happy to hear
Yes,
that.
because one of the things people generally say, oh, gouvernement pa ka fan rien, yo pa ni pièce bagay bay moun. And sometimes again, lack of information,
Information.
ignorance. There are support services. How
So
many of us are using them?
and we need to go out there and give that
Correct.
information a little more,
Correct.
because how
Correct.
many persons listen to this program, how many persons go out there who have the technology. So maybe we professionals, we
Right.
persons in the profession should go out there, like you're saying, to the different wellness centers, what we laymanly call the health centers. We need to go to the health centers, the wellness centers, and talk about this. Put
Right.
up the
Right.
numbers in these health centers,
Right.
make it publicly known. Because
That's
whereas
right.
the people may say that is again because of ignorance, they do not
Yes.
know where
Yes.
do I turn. Because many persons have asked, where do I turn? What do I do? I have no idea. So we now need to school the public a little more on
That
Correct.
is
this.
true.
And
Like,
it goes back to education,
yeah, so
awareness.
raising the awareness, of course, using different medium, different avenues, all right, with schools, television, radio stations, just putting that out there. So
Social
again,
media.
social media, hey, share the live, because there's persons that want to hear that. Again, very informative show. Wow, that's the time. My goodness, 3 minutes after the hour of 12 midday. when you have a wonderful discussion, that too, but time is on steroids. For true.
And we have more
Yes.
time today.
But before something that I really want
Go
to
ahead.
address
Go ahead.
before our
We still have
time
some
is
time.
done,
Yes.
Go ahead.
the impact of stigma on individuals.
Now, just before I ask a question I wanted to ask, because especially apart from even the family and friends as well, because when you have anyway, you highlighted, you said so much, and I personally actually took that into consideration, especially listening, being there for that person, having given that person that shoulder, that listening ear. You understand? Sometimes you have a brother. Some most persons until they hit their homes, they're not interested.
You're
Up
right.
until when it reached the household, the homes, you're like, wow. Because I remember, you're on that radio station or either there, Saturday there, let's go back to that show.
I never thought it would happen to me.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Right.
And this is why when something happens, we tend to be too much of a reactive society. We
Very
need to be
true.
more proactive.
Proactive.
Oh, I
Yeah.
never knew
Yeah.
that person was good. You do not need to know. You do not need to know. As we highlighted before, everybody can play a role
Definitely.
by checking in, by being kind, by using proper words, positive communication. And another point to Renita and Erland, in reducing stigma associated with mental health, we need to look at the words that we use. You see the word crazy and mad and psycho and cuckoo, or if they don't say it, they'll say,
Oh, nothing is wrong with that
No.
person. They just want attention.
right,
Right.
right. So if somebody is hearing you say that, would they even come to you for help?
Exactly.
Not at all. So we need
Yeah.
to be aware of
And
that.
another point, I know that certain times you will see certain people posting the statuses, and certain people may tell you that my status has nothing to do with how I feel. Most times it does.
Yeah.
Most times, not all the time. So that's another indicator of what is happening with this person. So sometimes you may see that person posting a long string of messages of, you know, some depressing messages. It's always wise to reach out and find out. Let's have a conversation. What are these posts about? It's not. I don't want to. I'm not delving into your business, but I'm there. Or just let this person know that you are there. They can always reach out to you. They can always speak to you. So there are different indicators.
Need a friend.
Right.
Yes.
That's
Yes. I'm just going to share three main effects of stigma on individuals. And the very first one is isolation. Many individuals feel isolated and reluctant to seek help due to judgment.
right.
So, because of that, they isolate themselves. And when you're in isolation, the depression
Everyone is
thrives on
dark
that.
around you.
Yes, it's like there's no hope. And this is again why the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness lead to thoughts of suicide. There's nothing that can actually work for me. I've lost hope in everything. Nothing can change. And oftentimes people wonder and say, rather, I don't know how somebody can commit suicide. As a mental health practitioner, of course, you understand that when an
Definitely.
individual gets to that point, death, being away from the problems, seems like it's a safe haven
Yeah.
until they get that help. Do you know, Elan? Not everybody who has suicidal ideations actually want to die. With the necessary help and support, they will grab it, they will take it.
Definitely.
But
And
again,
that's a misconception.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Again, like you been mentioned, death seems to be the only way out, the cure. Or that's not good here. Let me just take myself out.
Right,
You understand?
right.
Boy, I tell you something, and no two humans are wired the same. No two humans deal with the issues the same way.
That is why we should not take anything for granted. So
Right.
if you see somebody presenting, and sometimes when you speak to somebody, it's like there's no solution. They have only problems, obstacles, no solution. So this is when you have to really be concerned and try to get this person out of this dark hole that they are in. And like you're saying, because of course I'm seeing in the same, they are in that isolated place of themselves, and you need to try to get them out because, as you said, it's like the safe haven. They're saying, "Come, come, come." Yes,
until they learn otherwise,
definitely.
until they know that support is available and I am not alone. And if
Right.
you're listening, I would like to reiterate that you are not alone. If you are experiencing thoughts of suicide, if you're experiencing depressive symptoms, extended feelings of sadness, whatever the case is, you are not alone. And I'd like you to reach out for help because there are people like us who would be willing to assist.
Let's give them the
Yes.
numbers
And
again.
again, if you are a public officer, and even if you're not a public officer and you just want to maybe call and get the information, call 285-6252, 285-7264, 468, sorry, 2269, 468 2269, and 468 2260. Help is available, and the national helpline is 203. If you don't have credit, don't worry. Toll free, just call. Somebody will be there to answer. Yes.
Nice.
How much more time we have? Can I go
Go
on to the
ahead.
last two?
Definitely. We'll wrap it up with
I'm
the
seeing
last two.
Ellen smiling, but you were saying go
Yes, go
ahead.
ahead.
So low self-esteem. That's right. So I'm going
The
to
moderator.
so I'm going to listen to the host. So very quickly, another impact of stigma on individuals is low self-esteem. Yes, stigmatization can lead to low self-esteem and increased feelings of hopelessness again. We also have delayed treatment, and this one is worth highlighting and emphasizing all over again. Stigma can lead to individuals from seeking help.
Definitely.
Stigma can lead to individuals from seeking psychosocial support services. As I mentioned, that a thought just crossed my mind. But when I was doing my master's, as part of the thesis, this was a topic that was looked at, and one of the main results of the research, it showed that stigma, social stigma, and self stigma was some of the main factors that contributed to people not seeking psychological help, and that was a few years ago. It's still the same thing. Based on what I have been seeing, based on the research, it still shows
So we have a lot of work to
similar
do.
results.
We
Yes.
have a lot of work to do.
Yes. But we're getting somewhere. We're taking steps, albeit
Yeah.
baby steps, but we're getting somewhere. Because I can tell you, even from what I do with the Department of Public Service, EAP, and my involvement with other agencies, I can see that people are a lot more open in speaking about mental health challenges and in seeking the support services. So we're getting somewhere. We still have some more work to do, but we're getting somewhere. So that's hopeful. That's right.
But can I ask something? Um, for example, if you, I don't want to target anybody. You're working. You're at a particular workplace. You're working, and then your manager, your supervisor, notices some behaviors that stems with mental challenges. Does this person have a right to send a referral on your behalf to say you need to go and get some help? Can if I'm saying a referral because maybe this person have say you have spoken to this individual before, but this individual keeps saying I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine, but it's actually impacting the
Productivity.
productivity
Right.
and so on. So can you, the employer, send a referral on this person's behalf? What are your legal rights or limits and so on?
As an employer, if you realize that your employee is experiencing some challenges, of course, on a personal level, the first step would be to engage that individual. You engage that individual, and if after all efforts have been exhausted and you realize the person does not want to go, but yet it is impacting their productivity, a referral can be made. But one of the things that can be a little ticklish, seeking psychosocial support services should be a voluntary thing. There are times people may not recognize that they need the help, so they need a gentle coercion. You would gently encourage them. But in a case where it is impacting productivity, but you're not doing anything, even after efforts have been extended towards you, what can happen is that if the person does not want to go to, let's say, let's talk about government EAP,
Right.
or the private sectors also have the EAP programs. You can encourage a person to seek the services of an outside agency, because your work is being affected. So whatever challenge that you're experiencing needs to be addressed in order for the organization to get the most out of the job that they're paying you to do. But in all of this, it is the approach. Sometimes people think, okay, you're not doing this, go to this place. We have to change how we do it and how we say it. And even when you speak to an individual, the words you need to, that has to be different. How about,
I would
because when you
suggest
tell them you need to, or
right.
you have a
A
problem, I think you have a
command,
problem,
a
call,
command and a
call.
demand.
No.
Yes.
Yes. So just how we say it, even when that person may be initially resistant, by the way we say it, it can help them to realize that, okay, I need to go. Now, of course, you have cases where you have the outliers, right? Exceptions. There are always exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
thank you for asking, and I'm sure somebody can benefit from the information.
Yes.
Yes, and once I spoke about the EAP, the private sector, a lot of the organizations have their own EAP programs as well, because the EAP is really an employee assistance program
Program.
that provides that sort of support to the employees, to the staff members.
Okay.
Yes, and
Good to
most
know.
times the initial sessions are free.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you for
so
that.
are we on time or?
Okay. Last point.
Okay, the host is saying the last point. So I think we can end on how do we address stigma, although a lot of it has already come out of our discussion. Some of the questions that were posed by Ulan and Uranita, but one of the first things we're going back, education, education, education. We need to talk to people, and it has to start from the very bottom. Primary school children, secondary, all the way up, they need to know about mental health challenges, how it can help, so that if your child is going through a situation, bullying in the school, it's affecting their mental health, okay, I can go and speak to the school counselor. I can speak to my mommy, to my daddy about it. So when education takes priority, it helps, because this is where we get the opportunity to provide accurate information. Because a lot of people act from a place of not just ignorance but misinformation. Oh, leo pe um how you say medication? Like you pay we
We
med
med.
la i cafe you acquire your son robot. You cafe,
No me.
yes. Some
Yes.
and because of that, people do not want to take antipsychotic meds, antidepressants, misinformation. So providing accurate information. If you do not know, okay, go to the doctor, go to the to the psychiatrist, ask all the questions you need. They will talk to you. Yes. Another thing is positive representation, strategies for addressing stigma. We spoke about education, positive representation. As we focus on the theme for Suicide Awareness Prevention Month, changing the narrative, even the way that certain information is brought across via the media, print media, social media, that has to also be changed. Encourage the media to portray mental health issues as in a responsible way and an accurate way, because sometimes the headlines don't help. And in the interest of time, the last one, language awareness, we spoke a little bit about that. Using positive words, not using words like psycho and deck and all of this. We need to be able to speak to people using the proper terminology. And if you do not know it, that's okay. But let's stay away from the words that will place a label on somebody. Again, all of us have a part to play in reducing stigma.
Okay. So to wrap it up, I would like just a little. I'm hoping we have a little time to do this, Ellen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like a little demonstration. So let us put just a demonstration onto how to speak positively to somebody who seem to be experiencing some mental behaviors, some mental challenges, the behaviors, the symptoms. So, okay, what if I am a school teacher and you're my principal, and you've noticed that I have been maybe a bit forgetful. I have been a little more, I won't use the word aggressive, but I've been loud, not patient. And it's like out of character. My behavior is out of character for me. So how would you come to me as a principal to speak to me, because you've been noticing that for weeks now, that something is going on with me, something is not right? How would you approach me as my principal? And I'm not just saying about a principal teacher, but just an
Just a
employer
general, right,
employee.
right.
Yes,
Okay. Good day, Renita. How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
Okay. So I just wanted to check in on you. I know you're one of my best teachers. In the past, you've produced so much work. And I just wanted to check on you just to ensure that, things are going well. And if there's any challenge, know that you can speak to me. Is there anything that you might need my support with?
No, I'm fine, and I have been fine.
Okay. I'm hearing you say that you're fine and you've been fine, but the Renita I know is different. So the Renita from a few months ago and the Renita that I'm seeing now, no, it's not adding up. So talk to me, Renita.
Well, I've just been frustrated lately with so many things, and the children don't listen, and home, it's just been a lot. It's really a lot.
I'm
Yeah.
really sorry to hear that. And I applaud you for being open. I know things happen all the time, and I'm hearing you say that the children are frustrating you. You have your own personal stresses, but I'm here to provide you with the necessary support. Now, as your principal, I may not be able to counsel you to provide you with the proper information, but I know there are support services that you can reach out to. But even before that, we'll have a dialogue and I will see how I can best assist you. Maybe if I take one class out, I can do that for you until you catch yourself and get a little better. Would that
Oh,
help you?
yes, it would, because I was just wondering why already you jumping on counseling. I look like I have a problem.
Yes, but sometimes when we hear the word counseling, we think it's a bad thing. But I'm speaking to you, right? We're speaking, we're having a dialogue. It's just to see how I can help you to help yourself. Counseling is not bad. I know in our society, people think, you're going to talk to a counselor, it's a bad thing. But no, it really helps. And what if I told you 10 years ago when my husband died? God forbid, when my husband died, I was really, really in a bad place. And do you know what helped me? Just at what I'm doing here, one of my colleagues noted that and came to speak to me. And she referred me to a counselor. And that was one of the best things that she did
Really?
for me. And it
Oh,
helped me.
for
And
true?
I'm back on my feet. I'm back on my feet.
Okay.
It really helped me because when you go to counseling, it helps you to explore what is happening with you. You get to speak about coping mechanisms.
Okay.
Yes, but I really appreciate the fact that you learn why you disturbing our
See,
Yes.
so it's so real then, yeah.
listeners. Our
Yeah.
apology, but
Yeah, yeah.
Ellen was trying to hold it in and keep it in,
Yeah. But we
so we
get it.
got
We
out
get
of
it. We get it. We
character.
get it. We get it. We get it.
Yes.
We get it. We get it.
But thank you, Miss, for reaching out, and I do appreciate it. And you're such a great principal. And if you really went through counseling and it helped, I wouldn't mind trying it. Huh? I wouldn't mind at all.
You
So
did
thank you
know.
so
You
much.
are so welcome, and I appreciate you for speaking. Yes, and know that you can come to me anytime you need somebody to speak to.
Thank you so
Okay,
much
and
for that.
remember, you're an excellent teacher,
Thank
but
you.
sometimes things happen and it can affect
Yeah.
us.
But you said you'll take one of
Okay,
my classes, right?
yes,
Yes.
I
All
will,
right.
and I
Thank you.
will keep to my word.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of your
Alright.
day.
So, listeners, I like to have it out there, demonstrate it, not just say this is what to say or whatever, but demonstrate to you how you could go ahead and speak positively to your employee or even a friend too, because
That's right.
this could be done with a friend as well, not just an employer employee. Yes.
Right.
So
Yes. So, our final thoughts, remember
Yes.
that reducing stigma associated with mental health can save lives. Yes, we do
definitely.
not want anybody to delay seeking psychosocial support services because they feel that they cannot do it in our society. Every single person can play a role in reducing the stigma. So let's change the narrative. And just before I end, I invite all of you to join us on Friday, September 20th. The EAP unit, in collaboration with the Community Mental Health Services, as well as the Millennium Medical Heights Complex, is having a mental health fair at Constitution Park from 10 to 3 a.m. 3 p.m. Sorry. Yes, we're not going to keep you for so
Yeah.
long. So come on out. What can you expect? Mental health screening, psychoeducation, relaxation techniques. Come and get the information. It's all about educating the public.
Right.
Thank you for
Yes,
that. But then I will add, thank you for that. And I will add, we need to decentralize.
that's
And
right.
of course, I'm hoping that because this is an excellent activity, and I'm hoping that it will be extended to Viewfort as well.
Thank you. And yes,
Yes.
it will be because we are planning next month. October is observed as Mental Health Awareness Month. And
Okay.
we are hoping to be in Viewport in the South. So, yes, we
Definitely.
are
Okay.
decentralizing this.
Thank
Thank you
you so
so
much.
much for that.
Nice.
And again, thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And thank you so very much, listeners. Although I'm a bit disappointed that we did not get any calls. Did we get any comments,
Yeah, we
Ellen?
have plenty. Let me say good morning. Well, good afternoon to Devon, but hey, Christopher. Hey, Chris, pick up yourself. Of course, Empress Bobo, a Gloria Leo. Yeah, wonderful show. Persons, yeah, good,
Yes.
sweet.
Okay. Thank you so very much. And we look forward to having you with us again next week. So we'll have another guest. And of course, we will be continuing on the awareness of stigma attached to suicide. And we'll be bringing you more information on that. Thank you again.
All right,
Thank you.
nice.